Zuli is unable to enter.
Okay, we'll deal with that. Yeah.
Welcome, distinguished speakers, guests, and friends.
Ashley.
Namaste. Assalamu alaikum.
Ashley.
Yes? Are you not hearing me? My audio is on.
Ashley, please
Yes.
continue. Thank you.
Hi, is everyone hearing me?
Yes,
Yes,
Ashley,
actually.
please continue.
Okay. And Namaste. Assalamu alaikum and warm greetings to all of you. I am Ashley Sinanan of Trinidad and Tobago, an independent researcher specializing in historical studies. I hold a bachelor's degree in history with a minor in literature from the University of the West Indies. This is the 306th edition of our ICC Thought Leaders Forum. We wish to sincerely thank all of you who have graciously contributed to the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora Global Project. For 305 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. In the past 5 years, 5 months, and 2 weeks, we have featured 1,226 presenters speaking on 305 topics. We are pleased to have speakers and participants at this meeting from all parts of the world in different time zones. This weekly forum is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center, a legally registered research and publishing company operating since 2010. In order to improve this weekly program, we are asking for suggestions and volunteers. If you choose to give a donation to sustain the program, Dr. Mahavir should be contacted to provide details and will ensure that your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. Ladies and gentlemen, today I am our moderator today, who is Shalima Mohammed, who is also the co-director of this ICC Zoom platform. She is a cultural and heritage consultant, business psychologist, teacher, and researcher from right here in Trinidad and Tobago. Shalima, welcome.
Thank you so much, Ashley. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste, and a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you very much for choosing to be here with us. To those of you all in the live stream on the YouTube channel, it's a very special welcome. I'd like to say to all of you, we will take short questions today from members of the live audience after all the presentations have been done. And to those of you on YouTube, please type your questions and comments in the chat box and we will alert our speakers. So it's a privilege for us to welcome you all to this particular program in which we'll be highlighting Indo-Africans who've traced the steps of Mahatma Gandhi in India. And this is a small group of 10 persons of Indian heritage who were all born in various countries on the African continent. They journeyed to India to connect the dots, so to speak, from March 5th, 2026. We are told the tour began in Delhi, where they visited beautiful Agra, Fatehpur Sikri, and Jaipur. Over the ensuing days, they continued on to Gujarat, which was the place of origin for some of them. The search for their family roots took them to Ahmedabad, Rajkot, Gondal, Porbandar, Junagadh, and Jamnagar. Still searching for their roots and connecting the dots via Gandhiji's footsteps, they journeyed to the vast arid region of Gujarat called Kutch, where they went to the central administrative hub of Bhuj and the coastal town of Mundra, which connects Bhuj to the Gulf of Kutch. Their tour ended on the evening of March 20th in Mumbai. So we're hoping to hear what their experiences were like, whether they found what they were seeking, and how were they impacted by what they saw. Very importantly, we also wonder, will they return? So we'll be hearing from 4 of the travelers on that unique diasporic adventure. The curator of this historic tour, who was able to help connect the dots, was our very good friend and well-respected diasporic scholar, Dr. Muhammad Keshav Ji. You all know him. He has spoken several times on this particular program. And if for those of you who have toured with us before, he joined us here in the Caribbean in 2024 for our ICC tour of Grenada. Dr. Muhammad Keshav Ji lives in England, but was originally from East Africa. He's an author, lawyer, and a cross-cultural mediator who, through his global work in mediation and human rights education, was conferred the 2016 Gandhi King Ikeda Peace Award. MK, it's wonderful to have you, and I so look forward to your presentation. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Shalima, and thank you to all my friends from Trinidad and the Caribbean. My trip to Trinidad a few years ago, about 2-3 years ago, and our trip to Grenada was a major inspiration for this major project we undertook. So I want to convey my warmest gratitude to the ICC for its serious endeavor in capturing the history of the diasporic indentured Indians. So thank you, Shalima. I owe my inspiration to your group and to people like David Dabadine for all the work that you people are doing in helping to connect the dots. If I could have my first slide, Ashley, I could just describe the whole process. Thank you. Have you got the first slide?
Are you seeing it?
Yeah, I can't see it. I can't see the.
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Okay.
Maybe because you have a spotty internet, Ashley.
Yeah, it's pouring over here. I'm sorry. It's pouring and it's very breezy. It's like a storm over here.
Shalima, you want to try?
Noor, Ashley and I are geographically close, and therefore the internet is also sticking on my end a bit.
Yeah. I can't show because I'm recording and live streaming, so I can't minimize the
All
screen.
right.
But
Okay.
it was showing earlier when we did the test run. I don't understand
Okay,
why.
Ash, don't worry about it. Just a minute.
Okay, my screen says Ashley has started screen sharing.
Yeah, but it's stuck.
Hang on, let me try this again. Why it's saying it's paused?
Yeah, there's some button mark pause, on pause or something. I don't know how to do that.
Okay,
If you start.
I'm trying to find it on my end. Just give me 1 minute. MK, you want to start chatting a bit?
Lovely. Can you all see that?
Yes. Oh, Ashley got it. Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Ashley. So I will say next, please, after each event.
Yes.
So basically, this trip, India Unwritten, retracing the footsteps of a diaspora, was actually conceptualized by Zuli Karnik, the lady with the blue dress and the white hair. Zuli is originally from Kenya, and the gentleman on her right is a person who was her uncle, originally born in India, but played a major role in the political evolution of Kenya. He was on the Lancaster House Conference in 1960, and he was an important linchpin in precipitating Kenya's independence when he came back to Nairobi in 1960 and said that I will throw my lot in with the Black Africans in their struggle for independence. The bottom picture shows me, and on the side to my right, that is Mamdali Karim Chagla. Chagla was a leading jurist who was the brain behind the 1947 United Nations case that Jawaharlal Nehru championed against South Africa and its apartheid policy. Chagla himself was also from the Ismaili community in India. And so we found that many of us in our tracing our diasporic history had family members who were involved in the political processes in those countries, and they were inspired by the vision of Mahatma Gandhi. The creative genius in putting this program together and choreographing it and scripting it was a Parsi woman from Uganda called Veera Mehta. And Veera's picture is right on the right of this particular slide. So the conceptualization took place in the context of finding meaningful dots in our own history in order to undertake this program. The people on those in the slide right to the left are from 6 countries, and each one of them had a different varied trajectory in terms of their connection with India. And that's outside the gateway of India. And through the gateway, you can see the Apollo Bandar from which all the ships left in the late 19th and early 20th century that took our ancestors from the hinterland of Gujarat to the shores of African countries like Dar es Salaam, Mombasa, Durban, and Seychelles, and other parts of Africa. Next, please, Ashley. Ashley, could you give me the next slide, please? Hello?
It switched. I'm not sure why it didn't switch on your end.
I also need to mention that Zanzibar was part of that process. When I said Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania, of course, Zanzibar became part of Tanzania at the time. Okay, so the 10 participants, 9 of them are in here. The person on the extreme left with the blue shirt, who I'm now pointing at, his mother is a cousin of Ben Kingsley. And as you will see in this whole discourse, Ben Kingsley's father came from Zanzibar. His father's name was Harji Banji. And on the extreme left, you have Naila Valani, whose parents came from Eldoret in Kenya, who lived in the area of Kenya where many people from South Africa, settlers, had lived. Right in the middle, in the red shirt and the straw hat, is Karmali, Shenas Karmali, whose half-brother today is the foreign minister of Tanzania. And knew Tanganyika at that time. Julius Nyerere was a great fan of Mahatma Gandhi. He followed Gandhi's philosophy in his political struggle. So these 10 people came from 6 or 7 different countries of Africa, and each one of them had a different colonial history, and now are in the second diaspora. They're living in Paris, as is Nadira in the middle here, and Shanaz lives in Switzerland, and the rest live in Canada. Some of us live in England. So we are all now in the second diaspora of our lives. Can we come to the third slide, please? We started off, as Shalina had mentioned, in the Golden Triangle, taking in Delhi, Agra, Fatehpur Sikri, and Jaipur. And it was absolutely fascinating. We saw the Taj Mahal at 5 o'clock in the morning. And as you can see from this beautiful picture, that the Taj has a different mood depending on which part of the day you see it. And the sheen on the Taj Mahal is different in the morning than what it is in the evening. In the morning, it looks golden brown. At sunset, it looks pinkish. But it is absolutely magnificent to see what love a man could have for his wife to develop or create a monument of this kind. I think Rabindranath Tagore called it beautifully a teardrop in the cheek of time. And it really is. The Taj Mahal is actually poetry in marble, but absolutely beautiful for us to see how the Mughal culture embellished the general pluralistic culture of India through music, art, culture, literature, food, jewelry. It was a very enriching beginning of a beautiful tour. Ashley, could I have the next one, please? We then looked at the multiple perspectives through which we look at ourselves. You know, we have first the perspective of what we knew of India from our parents. And that's an exilic memory because we did not see that India. They came from that India and they gave us stories in truncated forms as we grew up, as we acculturated in different contexts. What did the Indians think of us at that time? What did we think of India? What did we think of the countries we came to? What did the host country think of who we were at the time? What did the indigenous people think who we are? What did we think of them? Finally, what does India think of us today? And what do we think of our multiple identities? And more importantly, with our hybrid families today, what do our children remember of who we are and where we come from? So identity is a very complex phenomenon. It doesn't only have one perspective. And the important aspect of this visit was, how did we embrace India and understand it as we grew up? What memories do we embrace and embody today? And what do our children feel about who we are? What do they mean when we say we are of Indian origin? How can they connect that with the new world in which they are living today? So the trip was meant to be a great fun-loving trip, but at the same time, it was for us to ask some very fundamental questions as we went through the deserts of Gujarat, through the beautiful lounges of the Mughal Empire into the different parts of India. Next, please, Ashley. In this whole visit as a curator, and with Zuli and Vira's concurrence, we thought of Mahatma Gandhi as being the pivotal point in all our narratives. And you know, Gandhi lived from 1869 to 1948. In an earlier program I did in England, we referred to him as the precocious universalist. Now, don't forget that it was in 1909 on the SS Kildonan Castle boat that Mahatma Gandhi wrote his Hind Swaraj, which became the blueprint for India's independence. So Africa was very critical in Mahatma Gandhi's overall vision of wresting power back from the Indians, from the British government, British to the Indians. So this is very important. Next, please. Then there were activities from 1894 to 1930 and onwards. There were African movements. Over here, I have a photograph of Ali Bhai Mullah Jivanji, but I must make the point that there were people involved from 1914 in the Kenyan struggle for freedom and better conditions of British subjects. Here is Ali Bhai Mullah Jivanji, who in 1914 was one of the founders of the East African Indian National Congress. But Jivanji was not alone. There was Madat Ali and Hussain Suleiman Virji, who were an Ismaili family from the coast. There was Maganlal Desai. There was Mangal Das. And there were people like that who were Indians in East Africa who took the case of the East African Indians to the colonial office, asking for them as British subjects in a dominion status to attain the right to own property on the White Highlands. And in 1924, the British passed the Devonshire Declaration, which said that all the land was in trust for the Africans and the Indians as British subjects had no rights. It was these movements in 1894 of the Natal Indian Congress in South Africa, and in 1924 with the East African Indian National Congress that Mahatma Gandhi was in close contact. And at that time too, after 1929, there were Indians who came from India, like Trikamlal Ambaram Bhatt, who started a newspaper called, which eventually became Africa Samachar. There were people like M.K. Pandya and a group called, I think they were called the Vidyarthis, who were running little printing presses through which the African political aspiration was given some sort of a vent in the political struggle for Kenya. So Indians played an important role in Africa during that time. And interestingly enough, in 1920s, Mahatma Gandhi sent two people to South Africa to help the Indians. One was Sarojini Naidu, who came in 1926 and in 1929, and Charles Freer Andrews, C.F. Andrews, who, as we remember, was responsible in the eradication of the indenture system in 1920 under Mahatma Gandhi's tutelage. So there are many families in Africa today who have this memory of their families and their endeavors that went on to Mahatma Gandhi's larger vision of changing his political strategy in India for India's independence. The next slide, please, Ashley. Over here, we are going through Gujarat, and I am actually reading a passage of going through the deserts and the dusty tracks from my book, Into That Heaven of Freedom. The interesting thing is that I'm reading my recollections of 40 years ago, of what I saw out of the window of the taxi in which I was traveling. And the 10 people who were in the minivan were looking out of the window as I was reading what I had seen 40 years ago. Obviously, the India of 40 years had changed, but the fate and destiny of the people in the Gujarat, which was written at that time, had not changed so much. They were going to tell us stories about their life today and how they remember their people having left for Africa many, many years ago. The next one, please, Ashley. So our trip took us after the Golden Triangle into Gujarat, and we arrived in Sabarmati in Ahmedabad. And this is the place where from 1918 to 1948, literally for 30 years, Mahatma Gandhi made his home. It was from here that Gandhiji led the Dandi Salt March. And over here, you can see on the right, there is a big poster that Mahatma Gandhi had no particular fixed abode, no particular home during that time. Everything he did for his mobilizational politics was from the Sabarmati ashram. And over here, he led the historic march in 1930. Literally tomorrow would be 96 years to the day that Mahatma Gandhi led the march. Literally tomorrow. So that's very historic. So can we have the next slide, please? Now, the Dundee Salt March was on 12th March 1930 to 6th April. And Mahatma Gandhi took a particular stand on the fundamental economic principle that why should Indians have to pay for salt, pay a tax on salt coming from England just to maintain the stability of the boats that brought them or took them out of the country or brought products for them to sell. So he established the principle that India can gain its political independence from Britain if it wrests back its economic control to produce its own goods. This is also forerunner to his revolution of ensuring that people all wore khadi clothing. So here is a picture of Mahatma Ji making salt on the ground at Dundee, to which he marched for about 275 miles at that time. Next slide, please. Again, at all these places, we saw Gandhiji in his different stages of his life, where he gave up his suit and took on vernacular clothing. But this was not a show. He believed in principles of universality, principles of economic independence, principles on encouraging and empowering the poorest in society. After all, we should not forget, while he was in prison in 1906 in Pretoria and Johannesburg, he translated John Ruskin into Gujarati. And that was Ruskin's philosophy was embraced in Gandhi's whole vision of Sarvodaya, which was how does a country judge its program? It judges it from its care for the poorest of the poor. Can we have the next slide, please? So at this Sabarmati, we also saw Mahatma Gandhi's school. He was a strict disciplinarian and an apostle of non-violence. For me, this was very interesting because, as you do recall, Shalima, I had said this in Port of Spain when I spoke there, that Mahatma Ji wrote a letter to my granduncle in 1938, but it was to his school in 1912 that my uncle went to study, and my uncle was one of his students at Tolstoy Farm in 1912. So the school was very important for my own historical background as well. Then there is the next slide, please, we can send it. Mahatma Ji returns to India in 1915, and this is a picture at Apollo Bandar, the very place from which all the ships went to Africa. And it's very interesting that Gopal Krishna Gokhale, who was responsible for bringing Gandhi back to India, told him when he came, he said, I want you, before you start doing anything, to visit the whole of India for the next 18 months. And he imposed on him the condition that Gandhiji has to travel on third-class train. So Gandhi began to understand India through the British rail on a third-class train. I must mention that our trip was not on a third-class train. We went to 5-star hotels in the big cities and 4 stars minimum in the smaller places. But we were able to appreciate the travails and the difficulties that our ancestors followed just about 150 years ago to be able to create a better life for ourselves. Next slide, please. This is an encounter I had with Malika Sarabhai, who I had met about 46 years earlier in India. And the Sarabhai family are very, very well known for their contribution to India's civic development. So Vikram Sarabhai with Jawaharlal Nehru was one of the founders of the concept of the Indian Institutes of Management and Indian Institutes of Technology. And Malika herself is a great dancer who took part in Peter Brook's epic production of the Mahabharata in England in 1973 or 74. I reminded her of that particular presentation, which I saw in England many years earlier, and that she was handling or running a small theater in Ahmedabad. And we had the good fortune of going to see the theater and seeing its performances. Again, Ahmedabad is a very interesting cultural and intellectual center of India. The next slide, please. We were able to access certain areas of India which were part of the homes of the Maharaja. I think this was the home of a very leading family in Ahmedabad, which is now turned into a sort of a small hotel or a small place where food is served, but in a very posh heritage, historical surrounding. I think it was one of the big families of that period of time that had made a lot of money in the textile work and had now dedicated their home to Indian tourism. This is of the 562 princely states of India. Many of the Maharajas have now converted their homes and their palaces into 4-star or 5-star hotels. And this was wonderful to see in India. We were able to have our food at some of the very posh places that these Maharajas have transformed into hotels. Over this photo on the right-hand side, you can see Zuli sitting right on the extreme right-hand side, closest to the screen. And this was part of her choreography to ensure that we were able to see all these places. Next slide, please. We then, after Bhuj was important to us before we came to Mumbai, because the Ismaili settlement in East Africa was not exclusively from Kathiawar and Gujarat. It was part of the Indian Ocean trade route that started in the 50 years before the British had come to East Africa. And it started off in Zanzibar with people like Ali Dina Visram, Satharia Topan, Pira Devji, Seva Haji Paru. These are people whose children are today all around in East Africa, as well as in the Western world. And we had to see that aspect of the Indian Ismaili history as well, because that preceded the British annexation of Kenya in the 1890s. We then went to Bollywood, we went to Mumbai, and here we saw how we understood our identity as we grew up. Over here, there's a picture of Ben Kingsley, whose grandfather, Harji Banji, was an Ismaili from Zanzibar. And interestingly enough, his grandfather stayed in 1929 in Pretoria at my granduncle's home. So there was that connection that went back so many years earlier. The next slide, please. Over here, we could see some of the great epic movies that shaped our understanding of India as we grew up. There were questions like Mother India with Nargis, Avara with Raj Kapoor and Nargis. So all these different films meant a lot to us to connect with our diasporic identity as we grew up. And again, as you notice in the middle picture, we've got the person standing on the ground. That is Riaz Vellani, who came from Toronto. And when we mentioned Gandhi and Harji Banji, Riaz reminded me that his mother and Ben Kingsley's father were cousins. So very interesting connections came up in this particular trip. The next one, please. We then went to the fort in Delhi. That was an earlier picture. This particular picture is very important because this is where in 1948, when India gained its independence, that Jawaharlal Nehru gave his famous Tryst with Destiny speech, where he spoke of what that day would mean for India going forward. And very interestingly enough, there is another dimension of India that we don't appreciate. We in Africa were called the wind of change generation. But a generation earlier from India were what people call themselves, in Salman Rushdie's words, as midnight's children, because they were born at the time when the partition took place. And so they have a different picture of India and a different understanding of their destiny as India became free. The next one, please. We went also to Bhuj, as we mentioned earlier, to see the dhows that were built. And many of our people in Africa, particularly the first wave in Zanzibar, came on dhows. They did not come on boats. Mahatma Gandhi came on a steamer. Gandhi came on a steamer, and the bulk of the Indians in Africa came in steamers from 1860s onwards. But earlier, people came on the Indian Ocean dhow trade. And this is very well documented in all the discussions of the Indian Ocean, particularly the work of the Nobel Prize winner Abdul Razak Gurna, as well as the work of a good friend of ours who comes on this program, Farooq Toppin. Farooq Toppin is writing a biography of his grandfather, Sir Taria Toppin. The next one, please. We then went into the Gujarat and we sat with people who we didn't know before, but we made our contacts as we went from village to village. And over here you can see the gentleman with the yellow is not an Ismaili, he's a Hindu gentleman who was telling us about the Ismaili Jamaat Khana in Nepal and how they lived in close harmony with so many of the people. So they gave us histories, they told us about people who were there, but unfortunately, the oral memory is lost now, and many people we met have lost that connection with the people of the past. But you could see this picture on the extreme left. Look at the women, look at the goat, look at the motorbike. And again, this woman on the ground, particularly this woman with the terracotta dress, she is describing a very sad moment that her son, who had gone to Africa to do some work and business, had died in a motor accident. And she was so deeply distressed to say that a mother has to see a child dying in a lifetime. It brought back to me the poignancy of how our ancestors could not contact their families and people didn't know who was alive or who was no longer alive. So these are stories of a second migration that people from the Gujarat are facing as their children go out for new opportunities to places like Mozambique, Kinshasa in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and other parts, including they have their children in Canada. So you'll find in every family, they have a mobile phone, and the one kid is in Toronto, and the other one is in Kinshasa, and the third one is probably in Mumbai or Hyderabad. The next slide, please. And we are nearly finished. We just have about 4 minutes more. Ashley, could you give us the next slide, please? No, I've lost the slide.
Sorry, my internet dropped and it now came back up. I will have to,
Do we need to wait for a few seconds?
yes.
Well, I've only got 2 more slides, then we're all ready for the next person.
You're seeing? Are you seeing the screen?
Yes, I'm ready,
Okay, great.
but I need the next slide. I can't see the next slide. I can only see the slide you had put on. Okay, for the Ismaili community, the destiny and the diasporic trajectory of the community was for the last 150 years guided by the family of the Aga Khan. So the Aga Khan the first, Aga Khan the second, Aga Khan the third, fourth, and fifth. So what was very important for us to see was the mausoleum of Aga Khan the first in Mazgaon in Bombay, because it was during the period of the 5 Imams over the last 50 years that the first Ismaili diaspora outside of India took place in Africa. And it's very interesting that the Aga Khan III in this picture was the person who played an important role in the independence talks of India, because in 1931, at the second roundtable conference, the discussions were held in his suite at the Ritz Hotel, and there's a famous photograph of Sarojini Naidu, Mahatma Gandhi, and the Aga Khan. Not to forget that it was at his palace that Mahatma Gandhi was incarcerated and where Kasturba passed away and a cremation took place. So those connectivities were very, very important also for all those people who were in that particular group. And the last slide, last but one, is that the place from which Aga Khan I operated in Mazgaon has today been transformed into a very, very environmentally friendly program by the Aga Khan Trust for Culture to develop a multi-purpose multi-generation home for the elders in a beautiful part of India, which is for all races, for all faiths, but embodies the beauty of environmental development with parks, and also there are heritage dimensions of the earlier place where the first Aga Khan met the community over 150 years ago, which would be now empaneled in the new program to mark a 150-year trajectory of the Ismaili community's first diaspora to Africa. That is what the program entailed. And finally, the last slide actually, the Humayun's tomb is a major Aga Khan Trust for Culture restoration project in collaboration with the government of India, and it is linked to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So we were able to see all the artwork and the restoration projects and how these projects are supporting all the poor people who are now developing their artisanal skills in order to provide income generation little programs for their families. So the trip had that particular dimension of how the AKDN today is playing an important role in the development programs in India, where Ismailis from various parts of the world are involved. I must mention that this is the one part of the Ismaili history, the African and the North American part, because Ismaili history also encompasses Tajikistan in Central Asia, parts of the Arab world like Syria, where the connection goes back to almost 1,000 years. I will now ask Ashley to give us the last slide so that my presentation is over. This again was the hallmark of the trip, to see the beauty of India, its architectural splendor, its integration of different architectural genres, Indo-Saracen, Hindu architecture, Islamic architecture, Persian architecture, and also European architecture. The Taj Mahal stands for that principle of pluralistic endeavor, and we were able to see that throughout the country, which is very heartwarming. I think, Shalima, that's where I'm going to stop this particular point at this point, and we can have the others to add in. And then when we come back to discussing questions, I would be happy to field them. I believe Zuli is waiting in the corridor, in the hall to be admitted. She said she was having difficulty, so might you be able to facilitate that? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, MK. What an extraordinary and informative presentation. I'm really quite moved by having seen and having seen some of the sites to which you visited, but now hearing the perspective that you shared because of all the history and so on. Only you can do that, by the way, as far as I'm aware. Only you can do that, and so fantastically done. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will really hold our questions until the end, and please do take note of everything you'd like to have clarified or everything that you would want to ask MK at the end. And let me just ask those of you on YouTube, please go ahead, type your comments, type your messages in the chat box, and that would be reviewed at the end. Please also kindly excuse us for all the technical difficulties today. We are working through it, but we will continue. So at this juncture, I want to welcome our second speaker, or rather, let me introduce you to our second speaker, and this is whom MK is referring to as Zuli. She's Zuleika Karnik. She lives in India, but she was originally from Kenya. She's dedicated much of her life to helping members of the diaspora reconnect with their ancestral roots and has been living in India for over 5 decades now. It's past midnight in India, and so I'm not too sure whether she is here live with us, but we do indeed have a pre-recording of her presentation. And I'm going to ask that we show that pre-recording at this point in time. Ashley, do you have that?
Yes, I do.
Can we bring that up, please? Thanks.
Did it come off?
Okay, no problem. I tried calling her a few minutes ago, so I know that she was hearing the program, MK.
I think she's in the program. I saw her name there, but I don't know whether she's been admitted.
I can only now speak because earlier I was
Oh, you're
muted.
here. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah, she's
Yes,
on. Yeah,
very
lovely.
much, since more than an hour actually, and I've been waiting to get in, but it says the hosts have stopped your entry.
So there may have been a number of reasons for that, but
Something
we're
that's,
very
yes,
happy to have you with
that's-
us. Thank you.
Thank you.
So as soon as we get your presentation up, we will just go ahead and share that. Is there anything you'd like to say while we wait?
No, actually, it's been a great privilege to be able to be part of this. I took it as a task which I wanted to fulfill, to share with others whatever I felt about India, and it's turned out to be a more of a story that I just wanted to share. Mohammed made into a big story because he then dug into everything when he agreed to curate the tour. So I'm very happy with the outcome. Yes, thank you.
Terrific. So we're going to have your pre-recorded presentation now. Thank you.
You were actually brought up in Kenya and went to study at the Sorbonne in France. 69-70, what made you come to India out of all the places? France and England were better choices. Your choice seems very odd at that time. Why?
Yes, it is odd because I traveled the world quite a lot since I joined Sabena, and then it was odd that I should come to India because it was something I wanted to suddenly do with my mother. So I brought her and we both came to India for a short 12-day holiday. The first shot was arriving in Bombay and suddenly feeling at home because everyone looked like me. It was very important, that feeling. And I decided that this is where I belong. Immediately, it was an immediate feeling. It was not thought through or anything. I knew that this is where I belong. Anyway, at the end of the holiday, we went back, and for another year and a half, I struggled to find a job in India, which I couldn't. Then finally, Sabena Airlines, with whom I worked in Nairobi, found me a post in Delhi after a year and a half. So that was a good break. But what I was amazed at, that the feeling of wanting to come to India was so strong that I waited a year and a half to get this job. Then the rest is history. India is my home, and India has given me everything that I wanted. Though I didn't know a soul in India, it's just been a wonderful journey.
Identity is a very complex phenomenon. No doubt you have multiple identities and have been in India for now 50 years. Where do you call home and why?
Most definitely New Delhi is my home, and because I've been living here for the last 55 years actually, but also the kind of varied life I've had in Delhi and also other places in India for a short while, I it has given me everything. It has given me everything. It has been all encompassing, and it has been very, very, very successful, very fulfilling, and I couldn't have asked for more.
Nice. Your immersion in India has been almost complete. You headed the Indian office of a major European airline, Sabina. You taught English to villagers in Raipur for lessons in Indian cooking. Then you worked with the Taj Group, worked as a farmer for many years, and I brought up 2 kids, one successful film director. So you can see your life has taken a full circle. Your fathers came from Bhuj and your mothers from Kathiawar. What lessons have you got from this journey, and what do you feel about this so rich and fulfilling life?
This journey has been phenomenal because it taught me actually what it is to be human. I know it's a cliche, but you cannot be in a country like India and not expect to participate in everything that's going on around you. It made me kinder. It made me compassionate, I think. It made me very tolerant because you had to put up with all kinds of
Daniel, I'm coming to put the kettle on, okay?
in the beginning, especially when India didn't have simple things available at with ease. It was and generally kindness of the people who are crossed, and that made you feel so small compared to the people in the West, where most of the life is like on material successes. Here it was understanding the people, participating in their problems or in their sadness, joy, everything. It made me an all-rounder.
Your uncle Ibrahim Nathu was a colonial minister of works, and you were a young girl in school in 1962 when Kenya was on the edge of gaining political freedom. Can you describe what were your recollections were? And were you one of the few Ismaili girls preparing to go overseas for higher university education? What was the Kenya of those days?
Kenya has always been a wonderful country, very free, very all-embracing. But during the independence struggle, one could not stop but feel very happy because of how free, which you did. So I was still at school and I was going on, but all around feeling was of great joy, euphoria, and that made things like looking forward to life.
You conceptualized this tour with Veera Mehta from Uganda. What inspired you to undertake this tour, and what were you expecting from it? Did it meet your objectives?
Veera is also part of diaspora history. She had to leave Uganda because of Idi Amin, and then both of us met about 40 years ago, and we decided to join. She decided to join me in the travel business. So that was a connect from the roots. Both of us went to Aga Khan schools, and when we came here, we had certain values which matched. Now, at the tail end of our careers, we decided that we should do something that has been important to us, the identity. So we went through the idea of looking at the roots of the people we were talking to, and decide that that was the one most important issue. Because, for example, when I was in Canada, I've never eaten more Indian food than there. So my reading was that they want to be Indians at heart, but of course they're living in different countries. Veera and I felt both that this was something that we could delve into very deeply and share it with others who would be interested. And I think we achieved with us, we achieved that objective, and it has been a great experience.
Finally, how do you see your future? You have birth relatives in France, Canada, the US, Africa, and now children and grandchildren in India. What is advice to your grandchild? Do any of them want to follow your pathway? And what would you say to them?
My family, because of me, my family just spread all over the world. Because of me, come visiting, and they're thrilled with what they understand of India, not just the sights, but just the living part here. It's real. It doesn't feel artificial to them. And that feeling which I had, of course, that is transmitted to my family in a way. I have two children who are very Indian, more Indian than anything else, and there was an option to go abroad, all of us to go and live in Canada, which they rejected because they're so Indian. I have one grandchild, and my advice to her, she's only 14, my advice to her will be just go do what you want and go wherever you want. That's been the case with my children too. They've done what they wanted, and they're happy, struggling or whatever it is. They are happy to be Indian, and we all are very happy Indian family. We have, of course, I married out of the community, and so it has been a very mixed marriage, mixed life. My children follow everything, and we all are pretty tolerant of each other and our thoughts.
Great, it's wonderful to have you here with us and for you to share these experiences. Thank you so much for your time, effort, and such stories that we got to know, and we really want to thank you for that.
Thank you for having me.
What an amazing story. I have 101 questions for you. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to restrict myself as well because we did promise the audience that they need to wait. So clearly I have to wait as well, but so fantastic. Oh my goodness. I'm really going to, at this point in time, ladies and gentlemen, just say thank you very much to Mrs. Karnik. And I'm going to very quickly bring on our third speaker. Let's meet Yasmin Danani, who lives in Canada but was originally from Tanzania. During her tour of India, we are told she experienced Gujarat through its art, food, and culture and reconnected with her Gujarati heritage in a meaningful way. Welcome, Yasmin.
Thank you very much. Ashley, I'll wait for you to bring up my presentation. And while we're doing that, I just want everyone to know it's a bit of a tough act to follow after Dr. Keshauji and Zuli, but of course I'll try and do justice and do my best. So before I start, I just wanted to publicly acknowledge what a privilege it was to spend 16 days with Dr. Keshauji, who shared his knowledge generously and answered any questions that we had. Nothing was off the table. So, Dr. Keshavji, I do want to say it was an absolute privilege for me to have been able to travel with you. So, thank you. With that, we'll do the first slide, Ashley, in full screen. Thank you. I'll wait.
Is it showing up full screen yet?
No, it's not in presentation mode yet. So I'll get started while Ashley is, okay. Ashley, we've jumped one too many. So if you can go to the second slide. And are you able to put it in presentation mode?
While she's trying that, let's continue.
Okay, so what I wanted to do with the second slide is just show you the geography of all the places that Dr. Keshavji mentioned. So we did land in Delhi, and when the slide comes, I can give you a quick view of that. And then we did the triangle, so we did Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur, and then took a flight to the capital of Gujarat, Ahmedabad, and from there, I was just trying to show you how we went to major cities, but also incorporated at least about 5 different villages that we sometimes just knew where they were. And then when we arrived there, we would just randomly ask anyone we saw, where's the Khoja Khana? And they would direct us to the place. And then we may knock on a neighbor's door and say, hey, do you know who might have the key for this Khoja Khana, etc. So it was a bit of an adventure, it was intellectual. We listened to music. We had these adventures where we're interacting with the local people and getting guided, and fitting in our own perspectives, our own realities. So going to slide 3, is more just a reflection of in Delhi where Gandhi is, memorial is beautifully done. So as you're walking to the memorial, on each side are Gandhi's sayings, and then you arrive at a beautiful marble edifice with his last words, Hey Ram, engraved. So I just wanted to show that and not dwell too much more on Gandhi, as Dr. Keshavji has improved. So
Yasmin,
has already spoken.
Yasmin, excuse me for 1 second, please. Ashley, can you please try to advance the slide? Let's see if we can get slide 3, please.
4. We should go to 4.
Or you can go to slide 4. Ash? Okay. Is that okay, Yasmin?
No, 4. Yeah. Okay, I see. Perfect.
Great, thank you.
Just a personal reflection of why the trip mattered. So you've got a sense of the group from Dr. Keshavji. You got a sense of us tracing Mahatma Gandhi's footsteps, and really a personal reflection. For me, it really deepened my own understanding of Gandhi's, not just his value system, but also some of the influences that were bearing on him, so that I can provide that information to my children. Provided an insight into why my great-grandparents left Kutch for East Africa. Where did they leave from? What were the circumstances? And then also experiencing firsthand the current villages as they sit today. Sinugra, in my case, in Kutch, which I'll come to later. And finally, though, in Mumbai also, as Dr. Keshavji mentioned, that we did go and visit Bollywood, and behind the scenes we got to see a movie being shot, etc. But it also reminded me of my own childhood and going to drive-in cinemas to watch some of these Indian movies. So it was a lot of nostalgia as well. Next slide, please, Ashley. So, personal realization for me that the trip really affirmed for me that identity is complex, it's multi-layered, it's hybrid, and that for myself, I can move across these identities and feel each part really nourishes, enriches the other. So, and I'm really going to focus and speak on that aspect of identity. The picture here you see was at the Jahangir Museum in Mumbai, and it's masks. And again, really, for me, affirming that we all have different masks as we go through life, and sometimes some are more pronounced than the other. So next slide, please. So going back to my Indian roots, so by heritage, I'm always asked, so where are you from? And often people actually mean, where are you actually from? Because you don't look Canadian. You say you were born in Africa, but you don't look African. So it's really your heritage, absolutely Indian roots, and my ancestor village in Sinugra. Today, there are 64 Ismailis there. The village does have water supply. It has access to schools. And in its heyday, it was really the pride of Kutch. It has a very unique artistic heritage. However, it was destroyed in the 2001 earthquake, and we could see that they're rebuilding. The pictures you see on the very left top, you see a structure, and it was called the Chabutro, which it was right at the entrance of our village, and really it is a huge bird feeder, and you could see some birds there, built in the 1900s. You can see me with an elder of the village there chatting, and you can see at the bottom our full group, which is sitting outside a Jamaat Khana, which is a house of prayer for the Ismailis. So aside from the travel, I do feel a very deep connection to that part of my heritage and identity, and it transpires on a day-to-day from I love Indian cuisine, I cook it, I listen to classical music and semi-classical music daily. I love Indian dance. While I don't know how to dance Indian, but I appreciate the art. And as Dr. Keshavji said, we did see a class in action in Ahmedabad when we visited one of the art centers. I love its textiles, its arts, and all the other expressions. What was advantageous to some of us on the trip is we still speak Kutchi and Gujarati. So we were very much able to speak to the elders and ask them some deep questions about not only their survival. One example I'll give you is there was one lady, I felt very embarrassed, 72 years old, could sit on the floor chatting with us, and she was telling us how her daughter is moved to Uganda, married and moved to Uganda, and that they're doing very well, and that they're running malls, etc. So I asked her, so have you had a chance to visit her? And she said, no, how can I? And I said, well, she's doing so well. Surely she could send you a ticket so you can go and visit. And she very quickly reminded me that in Indian culture, still steeped very deep, they do not take anything from a daughter. It is faux pas. You do not accept anything. So a son can do that for you, but you don't. The daughter now belongs to the in-laws, and you don't expect or get or take anything from. So a reminder that that's something in Canada. It's sort of the reverse. We're actually depending more on our daughters than we do on the sons. So it was very interesting to understand some of those cultural nuances. And today in my home, if you came, you would see that there's a fusion in the food, in the music, in the decor in the house, and in the clothing that infuses all the identities that I'm going to speak about. So next slide, please. So by birth, and I'll wait for Ashley to move, but I'll start. By birth, I was born in Tanzania, East Africa, and so were my parents. So on the top left, that's my mom and dad's engagement picture. You can see that my mom, for the engagement photo, has dressed in a more traditional photo, in a traditional garb, whereas the family picture down below is all my siblings, and my mom is expecting me in that photo, so I'm not there. But there's 5 of us. I'm the youngest. And interestingly, my parents never got to visit India again. So my sisters have, and I have as well. So my childhood memories of Africa were, you know, growing up on a tobacco plantation and interacting with the indigenous people because they were doing the labor work on the farm. But, you know, through that, I understood what recruitment looks like in those days. Through that, I understood what hard work looked like, what it meant when they got their paycheck at the end. How did they serve? Because they would be resident on the farm for, say, 4 months or a season. And through that, I learned to weave baskets, for example. And you would wonder, they had no schools. They're on the most remote areas in Africa, and yet they knew how to weave a basket, the full basket, they knew how to carry it. So a lot of very foundational learning for me when I was on the farm. Once you got to the cities, our community was, I'm going to say in Africa, very insular. You know, we went to an Aga Khan school, we went to an Aga Khan hospital when we were sick, we played sports at an Aga Khan sports. So in some ways, a little bit more insular. But I do feel very privileged to have had a bit, and I can even today speak some local dialects that are not common anywhere. It's interesting. And what does that look like in my house today? So I still cook some of the food that is African. So mikate mimina, which is a rice bread, which we usually have with another African dish, which we call kukupaka, which is chicken in a very curried coconut sauce. So again, and while we were traveling in India, you know, people would say, oh my gosh, this looks so much like this town where I'm from in Africa. And the conversations we were having is, yes, our grandparents, when they arrived in some cities, it was completely undeveloped. And when they started to lay the city plans, they recreated what they understood and knew in Kutch. So the dukawalas that we were seeing in some of the villages were replicas of what you might find in Africa in those days. Next slide, please. So I've lived most of my life, so over 50 years in Canada. So born in Africa, heritage from India, but really my life has been mostly in Canada. My children, 2 children, a daughter and a son, both born in Canada. And what Canada has given me is really critical thinking skills, a time management discipline, appreciation for common values such as human rights, the value of diversity, pluralism, etc. And at the top, you can see a set of my colleagues and friends that are from absolutely diverse background: German, French, South African, Chinese, and European, Malaysian, etc. So that's the beauty that Canada offers, is this blend of people and very accepting, knowing. I'm not saying it's all rosy, it's always a work in progress, but it's given us a home, as it were, and I'll talk about what a home really means to me in a bit. And also it allows me personally to blend the heritage with a modern perspective. So you can see me, I'm wearing a sari there. We'd gone to a wedding and the dress code was Indian. I'm wearing a sari, but that sari, if you could see it close up, is actually a Picasso sari. So here is a Western artist that I love, but now it's on an Indian garment and I'm wearing it as a sari. On the right hand side, you can see my niece, who's barely 2 years old and absolutely engrossed in the baseball game Blue Jays, which is her home team in Toronto. So you can see there is definitely a blending, a hybrid of culture that's being born. Next slide, please. So the unifying thread, and I can see that one of the pictures didn't render, for me, again, this is very personal, is a community and a faith. So what centers me? I have all these different identities, and how does that keep me still whole? And it's really the Ismaili faith and the leadership of Aga Khan IV, whose picture unfortunately could not be rendered. Next slide, please. Now, what does that mean for our next generation? So for us, my husband and myself, it's meant that we're raising our children with a very global perspective. So early exposure to travel alone to some of these countries, and then as a family, we've traveled to get so that they understand the European arts and its architecture. So Europe, and then understanding their Muslim heritage. We've traveled to Turkey, Spain, and Egypt as a family. And of course, encouraging the children to explore and understand their own identity with the tools that they have. Here, I also wanted to share a story of the Taj Mahal. Our guide had said to us that there were 3 things that Mumtaz mentioned to Shah Jahan before she passed away. And the 3 things were: do not marry, look after our children, and build a monument that shows our enduring love. So I just thought I'd share that, is no matter how many times you visit the Taj Mahal, it is majestic, it's beautiful. Next slide, please. So this is all the food pictures. I mean, there's way more, but these just to give you a variety of, we had the Gujarati thali. We had, I think I ate puri every single day for breakfast. And, some street food that we didn't eat on the street, but the rest, our hotels would cater for. So pani puri, chana bhatura, etc. And for me, the conclusion of the trip, and I have to again thank Dr. Kashauchi for allowing, and for the ICC for allowing us this space so that it crystallizes our thoughts of why we did the trip. And here I wanted to share what is home. And so for me, home is not just a physical place. It is an emotional and cultural space that we carry within ourselves. right? Of blending of culture, our personal history, and our own lived experiences. Next slide, please. And a final reflection before I go to my very last slide is our role, my husband and myself, as parents, is to provide a strong foundation of identity to our children and to our wider community, and to empower them to explore, adapt, and define their own sense of self, understanding their heritage of Africa, of India. And the very next slide, Ashley, you'll have to put it in full so that, or if you can try and play the song. And I have the lyrics on the left side. We were listening to this music, and I wanted to also just share that with you. So Ashley, if you can go to the next slide, please, and press play on the harmonium on the right, and you can follow the lyrics.
Uh,
No,
I am.
Okay, Ash, it's okay. In order for her to be able to get that, she would have to turn on audio.
Okay.
And I'm seeing
I
no
can
sound, so it could
yes.
be a little more tricky
No
than
worries. No
than it
worries.
seems.
But what I wanted to say, the song goes, Mera juta hai Japani, ye patloon Englishstani, sir pe lal topi Rusi, phir bhi dil hai Hindustani. And I wanted to end with says my shoes, and this is the various melding of cultures, right? So my shoes are from Japan, my pants are British. On my head, I have a red hat, which is Russian. Nonetheless, my heart remains Indian. So I can sing it sure. Someone's asked me, Mera juta hai Japani, ye patloon Englishstani, sir pe lal topi Rusi, phir bhi dil hai Hindustani, mera juta hai Japani. I can't sing very well. I'm still fighting a cold from my trip, but thank you very much. And back to ICC, moderator.
Wonderful, thank you. And we always appreciate any attempts to sing. That song is one that we are very familiar with, and I love that you incorporated it in your presentation. And it's so true. I think so much of what you've shared with us showed us that indeed your family is exemplifying what your life has been like. And I had to say, around that table, you practically had the United Nations there dining with you. So that's just absolutely wonderful. There's again so much that we can talk about, but I want to bring on our next speaker now, following in your footsteps. Wonderful, wonderful presentation. Thank you so very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have our fourth and final speaker. And again, I'll just ask you to please hold all your questions. Do make note of it, and we will ask those questions and take your comments for our speakers at the end of this particular presentation. So now we have Mahmoud Jumani, who is from England, but originally from Uganda. Having lived in London for over 50 years, he visited the homes of his forefathers in India, sharing stories and connecting with fellow travelers. And we are so fortunate to have him share a little with us now. Welcome, Mr. Jumani. Can you unmute your mic, please?
Okay, let's start again.
Yes, thank you.
Namaste, and to everybody in India and everywhere else. Welcome to my very condensed travelogue. I was asked to keep it short, but slightly humorous as well at the same time. So just to start off with, I am the very first person in my family since my grandfather migrated from the Kutch, Kathiawar area to actually have visited India and to follow in the footsteps of my grandfather. So it was a dream come true for me as well as the family. So you know, it was an incredibly historic, life-changing moment for me, and I cannot thank the organizers enough for having me on this trip and for me having made this trip in the way that I did. So every picture tells a story. So all I have is some pictures. I'm going to let you imagine what that story, the picture says. And I will just give you a little spiel on it. And okay, so if you just go to the next slide. Yeah, and the next one. Okay, yeah. So let me just outline what my tour objectives were. I came on this tour to explore our roots, heritage, culture, and history. How can it be represented and articulated in a terminology that helps us understand our multiple identities in contemporary times? Looking back and looking at the present and projecting forward, looking to enrich our understanding of self, community, and humanity, to gain perspectives on the Indian diaspora. So next slide, please. Okay, so cuisine, as you've seen, was certainly a major part of our tour. And now when I think about it, my tongue and my taste buds are full of wanting to experience all that all over again. So cuisine definitely played a big part, and the pond was a very important part of that cuisine. So I would say that the tour has most certainly helped me express my multiple identities more in a more authentic voice of the overseas Indian who knows what it means to connect diasporic dots. The script of my forefathers who migrated from Gujarat and Kutch region has become a reality. My understanding of our multiple identities from the Arabic, Persian, Indian, Western stroke global can be understood and articulated in a much better way in our diverse pluralistic world today. Next slide, please. Okay, I don't know, can you play the video? It's a very
Sure,
short one.
sure. That's a video.
I don't need the audio.
Sure.
Oh my God.
Hey, so that was a my introduction into becoming a Maharaja in India, which was very exciting indeed. So we started the tour traversing the Mughal India, where the Indo-Islamic idioms came together to create an architecture and monuments that have become wonders of our world. And yeah, okay. Then we journeyed south to the land of my forefathers, visiting towns, cities, and villages from where my grandfathers migrated from Kathiawar and Kutch. Slide 5. Next one. Okay. So, observations, conversations, and hospitality with the families certainly demonstrated to me how adventurous they had been to take the risks of embarking on their journey to East Africa. This diasporic journey has certainly shown me the history, heritage, cultures that have shaped my identity today. Next slide, please. Okay, so finally, how can I forget the memorable visit to the Bollywood studios that reminded me of the huge role that the films played in my childhood, connecting me to my Indic roots. I only recognized this role, the role played by the movies that Yasmin was mentioning. We went to the drive-in cinema to watch with our parents, and here I was reminded that if I want to become a Bollywood star, I must audition for a role at the studio. So my favorite movie, Lagan, which is all about cricket, a passion of mine, is where I auditioned for. Let's see if I get a role in Bollywood maybe sometime in the future. So that is the end of my official presentation. And shall I say, Dhanyawad, thank you very much indeed. But I also have a couple of other stories that I wanted to tell you, just to kind of add flavor to what it means to be an Indian today in Britain. And the first story is about Jayabin Desai. She migrated to Tanzania from Gujarat in the 1950s and eventually settled in Britain in the 70s. In the UK, she led a strike by Indian workers who were effectively working as indentured workers in a factory in London. To improve the rights of the Indian workers, that became part of the folklore of India. So her actions, her activism was such that it led to a change in the government laws, and effectively starting a system, what was called looking at modern slavery laws, so that this endangered system was now being actually addressed in the United Kingdom itself. Forget about in the Caribbean or in East Africa, where it had been originally perpetrated. So this was where she improved the working conditions, which for migrants, and challenged the stereotype of South Asian women as passive. It certainly left its mark on all those who are of South Asian origin today in London. And the second story I just want to quickly share with you happened with when I was having lunch with 4 9-year-old students, and they were, I was telling them my story as they wanted to hear. And as part of, at the end, the girls asked me, where do I belong effectively? So I told them that I belonged nowhere and that I belonged everywhere, because none of these countries I had been to accepted me. So where did I belong? So, they were shocked, but they responded, so you belong to the world then. And I was quite touched by that statement from these young girls, saying that I belong to the world. And I felt now I have some identity that I can say is mine, that I belong in this globalized world. And I was so touched by the young people. So they shared with me what my identity was. Having been to India and everywhere else, finally the girls told me my identity belongs to the world. So thank you. Dhanyawad.
No, thank you. Another wonderful presentation. I want to thank you very, very much for sharing. It was quite endearing, I must say. And at this point in time, I'm just asking that those of you all who have questions or comments that you'd like to raise, please go ahead, raise your electronic hand. It's in the reactions button at the base of your screen. And I see 2 hands already up. I'm not seeing yet Suresh Bhai with his hand up, but Suresh, if you are still with us in the Zoom room, please, I do want to hear your comments. Kumu, your hand was up first. Go ahead, please. You need to unmute your mic. Kumu Gupta, can you please unmute your mic? Okay, perhaps the host, Navin, are you hosting? If so, you may need to control the mics.
Yes. Who should I enable?
They're
Kumo.
enabled. Kumo, can you try
Okay.
again, please?
Maybe you can put your question in the chat.
Yeah, that's a very good option, Yasmin. Ranbir, can you try to unmute your mic?
Yeah. Hi, I'm in.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. Hi, this is Kumu from Boston. Fascinating session. So I've had the privilege of working with Gandhiji's granddaughter in South Africa in Pietermaritzburg, and as Keshevji said, tomorrow is the 96th anniversary of the Salt March, and every year she does conduct a march across, I think it's 2 miles or something like that in Pietermaritzburg. So that's very fascinating. And a question I had is it possible to get the slide presentations?
Kumo,
Yes,
all the slide presentations are available on our YouTube channel. So you just need to look again at the recording of this program on YouTube and you should be able to get the presenter slides. MK, but would you like to please make a comment on the march in Pietermaritzburg?
on the march.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the march, can you hear me, all of you?
Yes.
Yes, I think the march was so significant because Mahatma Ji in 1930 was able to energize the most vulnerable people in India and get them mobilized on their own economic potential. I mean, the whole salt march was the most inequitable principle of the colonial state in making Indians pay for salt, which was something they could have produced themselves. And salt is so critical to life. So you could see how Indians were in the throes of an economic subordination. And Mahatma Gandhi, with his courage and his singularity, was able to change the whole paradigm. I think it had a major global impact on the whole colonial system. It gave a lot of courage to people who were fighting for the independence, the blacks in Kenya, in Ghana, in different parts of the world, where Gandhi could show that you have your destiny in your own hands. If you have the principle to understand that you do not want to be exploited anymore, you can change your destiny in life. So I think that the Salt March was very, very critical. But also the Salt March, from Firoz Navroji's research, followed on the East African Indian National Congress's attempts to get a better standing for the British Indian subjects in East Africa, which the colonial government refused. So Mahatma Gandhi changed his tactics from dominion status. He started fighting with India. And this whole idea was to tell the British, leave us alone. We are loyal subjects, but we have our own dignity. We will produce our own cloth. We will wear khadi. We will also produce our own products. I mean, he really vernacularized the entire Indian freedom struggle, which I think was a fascinating movement in mobilizational politics. So I hope that gives a perspective.
Yeah.
A perspective on what he stood for. His remit didn't end in 1914. It actually started in 1914. And South Africa was a critical crucible in which Gandhi learned all these things.
Thank you so much for sharing that. We have Badra Badgama. Please go ahead.
Hi.
Hi.
I am a friend of Mohammed Bhai. So with his invitation, I'm here. I just wanted to say that some of the experiences, I am also of Kutchi background and come from Mundra, my family's, and of course, we visited India quite often, not that often, but still, unlike Rosina Vishram, who's a very, very close friend of mine, and she'd written books about India and Indian women and so on, but she'd never been to India before. So she said she'll go if I go with her. So we went on a tour, and I found out that while we were traveling all over India, I could take her inside the temples. But when we were in Mundra, which was also her heritage village, I was not allowed to go into the Jamaat Khana. So I was just wondering, in your group, did that happen, or because you were like foreigners and you were specially treated, and so they allowed everybody to go in? Just
Oh, yeah. Okay, I can answer that for you. We didn't
yeah,
have that difficulty at all. I think it depends on which part of India you are. In certain places, people, if they don't know who you are, they feel little bit worried that who is this person? Why do they want to come?
yeah.
So I don't think that it is a common phenomenon right through. In fact, in our group, we not only went into the Jamaat Khanas and the temples and the Gurudwaras and the mosques and the Imam Bargas, but also the Jamaat Khana in many of the areas have been where Ismailis are not present, are looked after by the Hindu people. So
Oh,
this Ramesh Bhai with his yellow shirt, he had the key to the Jamaat Khana. And he said, not
okay.
only that, he said, many Ismailis are not here, they've left for Bhuj. But he said, we go to the Jamaat Khana when we have weddings, it's in the hall of the Jamaat Khana. So he said, it's very porous, there's no distinction. So this question of Jamaat Khana and its entry is different in different parts of the world. Obviously,
In
today, when you see the Ismaili centers, for example, in London, Badra, as well
yeah.
as Toronto, Vancouver, Dubai, Dushanbe, Sugar Land in Texas, places are all, they have special visits to show people the Jamaat Khana, to show them its architecture, to show them its functional purposes. So
In
you've got
fact,
to
Mohammed
remember
Bhai, you're so right, because Gulzar Khan ji again is a very good friend of mine,
that.
and she was saying that now Jamaat Khana is open for everybody because there's so many intercultural and racial marriages that
Absolutely.
everybody is allowed into the Jamaat
Absolutely.
Khana. But Mundra being such a small town, and because in fact I could have got away with it because I speak Kachi, and
Well,
but then
Badra,
my family was there as well, so they would know that I was Kaparia's daughter, So
Badra, you're more Ismaili than my wife and all of them because you speak the same language and you know more friends and you know all the food and more than me, you know Kachi, which I don't.
Yali Madad.
But
Shalimar,
That's
Badra, I
wonderful.
just wanted to mention your late father played a major role, am I not right, in the
Yes,
Gandhi
he did.
Memorial Academy in Nairobi?
He
I think
did.
he gave the first check when the Gandhi Memorial Academy was being sorted, am I right?
Yes, yes. So
So
he, of course, ended up being on the board of governors when it became Royal Technical College as well, So he collected a lot of funds with Dr. Yagnik from all over East Africa to build Gandhi Memorial College. But of course,
absolutely.
yeah.
And
But
also,
also in Mundra, Mohammed Bhai, in Mundra, he did a lot for the Muslims as well. And one of his wishes was to build a mosque for the Muslims in Mundra, but he died before that.
mashallah. No, in fact, there's such a porous dimension with all our cultures. I mean, in East Africa, our food, our music, our rituals, our wedding ceremonies are all brought us all together in a common shared understanding of our ancestral past.
Also, Yasmin showed the photograph with her mum wearing a short dress, and Gulzar told me that the Ismaili women were so used to having the pacheri. So if anytime somebody came at the door, they'll make sure that the pacheri went on top of their head. And
Yes,
then to find them wearing the short dress, they were not very comfortable. But it was in the long term, it was a good idea because they had to come and live in Western countries so they could assimilate or at least adjust to the new lifestyle, wearing the Western kind of outfit. But pacheris were very much part of it.
absolutely. Well,
thank
that's
you,
part of
thank
the
you,
East
Badra.
African historical
Sorry, I took
appropriation.
so much time.
That's
Shalimar,
fine. Let's get a comment from Yasmin, please.
there's a question for me in the chat about when did you leave Tanzania and what was it like for you? So, I moved from Tanzania in 1975, and I came to first to Toronto, and finished my high school in Toronto, went to university in Toronto, subsequent, so what was it like? Very, very different. People in Canada were not very aware. They were not very worldly. They hadn't traveled as much. And so in school, I'd get questions like, oh, you were born in Africa, so were there lions in your backyard? Did you? It was as if like we lived in a jungle, right? Slowly. When I arrived, you couldn't get a lot of our foods. Like it was very limited. The fruits. Today we enjoy fruits from all over the world. You couldn't get mangoes, as an example, in those days. So it was different. The Canadian people, definitely, we in school, I can't say personally, but definitely from a community perspective, there was that scare or understanding of the other wasn't there. So yes, we would be called names sometimes. But really, if you look at it overall in the scheme of things, it was less. But we have to acknowledge that it was there. So, for example, some of the kids would be called a Paki, meaning you're Pakistani, but it abbreviated to Paki, but derogative. It would be derogative, like as if you were going to use an N-word, right? But, and then we would feel like, oh, but we're not even from Pakistan. We're from Africa, and why is this happening? So I'm going to say good 10 years of adjusting and proving to the wider community the value that we bring and the perspective that we bring to the fabric of Canadian society. So it certainly wasn't all easy from day one.
Yasmin, where in Tanzania were you?
I'm from a very small town called Iringa.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Okay. So one Jamaat Street, and but prior to moving to Iringa, I was about an hour away in a farm. And the neighboring farms were mostly German or a couple of Ismaili other farms as well. And it was lovely. Like we would meet on Fridays to do our prayers, and so long ways from Iringa today.
Yeah, Yasmin, when I was at school in Zanzibar, I had a girl from Iringa actually studying in, because maybe when your mom was there, they didn't have a secondary school for girls in Iringa at that time, maybe.
Okay, I'm not sure. But my very best childhood friend, Rumana Tower, the Tower family, I don't know, from Zanzibar.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know Roxy Tower. Not sure.
Yes, yeah.
Anyways, back to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Shalima.
So I'm so glad that you all were able to connect, reconnect, and move on. Thank you very much for doing that on the program, and I hope you all maintain those connections. We're going to take a question now from Ranbir. Go ahead, please.
Great presentation, everybody. As always. Question for Mohammed, please. I'm sorry you can't see me, but my camera won't turn off. Where I am, so you can't see me now. It's good.
Hello, Ranbir, how are you?
All right, not on my feet. So my question is, and you may not like it, but this is my assessment. Everyone's praising Gandhi, but what really were his achievements, especially in South Africa? I mean, after he left, even Jan Smuts, who said he couldn't wear his sandals of a great man, backstabbed him. I mean, there was a pegging act. There were other laws. This is before apartheid. And apartheid surely completely destroyed any advancements that he'd made. Now, okay, Verwoerd did give Indian citizenship in 1961, but most people thought they were still coolies who should be repatriated. Kind of ironic considering they were white settlers. But until, I would say, at least the time of Vorster, or even Peter Albo's reforms, Amit Jan Rajbansi into the tricameral parliament, did he really achieve anything in South Africa? And in terms of the African leaders taking inspiration from Gandhi, well, look at Mukhan Singh, Trey Yunus from Kenya, how he was treated. He was marginalized out after independence. So can we really call it an achievement by Gandhi?
Yeah. What's your question, Ranveer? Can I give it more clearly?
Sorry, well, they're talking too fast. It's that English accent. Did Gandhi really achieve, I mean, especially in South Africa, did he achieve long-lasting change? Because after he left, Jan Smuts backstabbed him and then apartheid came in. And even you were mentioning African leaders being inspired by Gandhi. But when we have someone like Makhan Singh in Kenya, trade unionist, independence fighter, he was marginalized after independence. So can we really say Gandhi had long-term achievements if we look at these things that happened?
It's an interesting point. I cover it in my memoir, Into the Heaven of Freedom. I speak about whether Gandhi and Mandela were both successful. People may say they were both failures. But you've got to remember that apartheid developed with full force after 1914. And for another 50 years or 40 years, we had to go through a lot of rubbish and nonsense. But eventually, as I say in my book, apartheid imploded on the absurdity of its own follies. Apartheid imploded eventually, and Gandhi's philosophy is still valid today, even today, after almost 100 years. If we want a decent society, I think the values he spoke about are those that we have to embrace. So if you call Gandhi's success and you try and judge his success from what he achieved in 1914, it was a small milestone in his larger struggle. Because Satyagraha, which managed to bring India its freedom, and mobilizational politics was what Gandhi learned in South Africa. So if you look at Gandhi's success only from what he did from 1894 to 1914, one can argue that Smuts took him for a ride. But eventually now, when you look back 100, 120 years, I think what Gandhi did was phenomenal. He eradicated the indenture system. He taught the Indians that you can fight the most powerful institution in the world if you are able to maintain non-violence and certain values and principles and moral strength and rearmament. So I think Gandhi cannot be put into that small 21-year-old piece and say, well, he failed or he succeeded. You can't tick a box and say failure, success. I think Gandhi is a much more complex phenomenon. As a vision, he stood for a universality that goes beyond time. And even people like Martin Luther King, who never even met him, found in his philosophy the strength that he was able to utilize to run the civil rights movement. So Gandhi is a very complex phenomenon. He was a human being. He had his failures. He had his faults. Mandela was a human being. They had their faults. They lived within their time. But I think if you look at the broader picture of what they stood for, you could see that they had values that transcend time, that transcend the binaries of culture, of faith, of gender. They stood for vision much beyond their time. So I would certainly say that Gandhi has to be looked at in the bigger picture.
Excellent point, MK. Thank you for that. Ravi, welcome.
Oh, thank you. Namaste.
Hey,
Salam,
Ravi,
Shalima,
how are you, my friend? I'm missing you. I haven't seen you for
Dr.
a long
Kumar,
time.
and the panel, and Mohammed Keshavji, how are you? Long
Fine,
time.
fine. Lovely to see you. All the better
My
to
question
see you
is for
again.
you. My question is for you.
Lovely.
And it's more of a geopolitical question that, to me, Gandhi's whole existence and his whole fight for freedom was one before Pakistan was formed. It was a united India, as far as I see. And the question is two parts. Has what I will call the Gandhi memorial, has it ever been used to quell or to lower tensions between Pakistan and India? And can it be used in the future to unite both countries based on a common point of respect for Gandhi's life? Do you see that happening in the future, and has it been used in the past?
Yeah, Gandhi's life is complex, as I say, and the problem in the subcontinent is also very, very complex. There's a brilliant book that has just come out recently, which somebody gave me as a Christmas gift, called Shattered Lands, by a chap called Sem Dalrymple. And I think one has to understand the present situation on the subcontinent in the context of what happened in India after the 1857 mutiny. So I think it's a very complex situation. But what I do see, which is of great value, that some of the principles that Mahatma Gandhi stood for, I feel are universal. And I think we need to embrace the universality of the beautiful culture that has defined all of us in the subcontinent. So if you ask me my culture, I say yes, I can relate to Buddha, I can relate to the Bhagavad Gita, I find inspiration in the Holy Quran, but I see a beautiful, rich tapestry of Christianity in India. You know, if you take South India, look at the Malayali culture, for example, look at the Buddhist cultures. I think we need to embrace the beautiful strands of culture, of humanity, of coexistence, of pluralism, which make up all of us. I mean, all of us come from a common culture. And I think that we need to embrace that common culture to look beyond the present difficulties and look at the beauty in each of one of our culture and say it embraces all of us. And I see great potential. But you know, there are different periods of time when people should look at all these different dimensions. So I'll leave it at that.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll keep
Thank
in
you,
touch.
Robbie. Nice to see you, Robbie. Lovely.
Terrific, MK. Thank you. We're moving a little bit faster now because we have just 2 minutes on time. We may go over by about 5 minutes. Vijay Kapadia, welcome. Vijay, can you unmute your mic?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Yeah, this has been inspirational, actually. I'm of Gujarati origin, born in Navsari, grew up in Fiji, living in Australia. I'm in the medical field, and I did a talk a few months earlier. It's a real honor and a privilege. This is really inspirational, and it's what a wonderful occasion to meet all of you, particularly the speakers. I've written in my comments that you centered it around one of the greatest champions of our common humanity, which you have discussed so beautifully. However, I think there is another India today. You know, you were talking in very idealistic terms, and rightly so. And I wish that was the reality, but perhaps the reality today is slightly different. You know, Gandhi has great principles, and Mandela and Martin Luther King followed his footsteps. But is Gandhi given a lot of lip service in India today? You know, very few people talk of his secularism, of his humanity, and his assassin is praised by many in the current government, you know, garlanded, and there are occasions where Gandhi has been shot and blood is coming out from his statue. So, you know, and then you went to Ahmedabad to see Sabarmati, you know, which is very appropriate. But that is also the place where I don't have to remind you, a very sad part of Indian history took place, you know, just over 2 decades ago. Seeing these words of such great humanity coming from people of Muslim origin is even more inspirational, you know, that you people have shown what common humanity is, you know, which is something which may be lacking in India today. And you talk of indentured labor, it actually, Gandhi ji sent Charlie Andrews to Fiji to help set up the abolition of indentured labor. C.F. Andrews ended up staying in Fiji for many years, and he was known as Deen Bandhu, the friend of the poor. And a school very close to where I grew up, it was known as the Deen Bandhu Primary School, and the name has changed since, you know, but it's still known as Deen Bandhu. So we have a lot to learn from Gandhi, but is India losing his lessons and paying only lip service to him? And then Mughal history. I mean, there are a lot of bad things that every invader did in every country, but Mughal history and Mughal culture, Mughal art is part of India. This Taj Mahal that I studied in Gwalior, which was an hour and a half from Agra. I've been to this monument so many times. I've been to Agra, not even gone to the Taj Mahal because I've seen it so often. But this is a part of the history of India, which you are putting up so nicely. But is the current leadership sincerely putting it in that same context? These are the big questions. I don't think we can answer all this today, but that is another reality too in India, I feel, you know.
Thank you, Vijay. I think when you spoke about Fiji, I think of Tota Ram Sangadia,
Yes, yes.
Is a remarkable man.
Fiji
I mean,
द्वीप में मेरे 21 वर्ष, my 21 years in Fiji.
Brilliant man, and who
He,
went
he ended
beyond
up
his
in
time.
Sabarmati and he died in the ashram. His book was written by Banarsi Das Chaturvedi. But that's a brilliant, I have it here with me in my library here. Yeah.
Well,
The
wonderful.
Hindi and
Because
the English version.
C.F. Andrews actually stayed at my granduncle's house in Pretoria in
Wow.
1914.
Wonderful.
I have his photograph in the book I've written. But I think we need to look at the universal principles of Mahatma Gandhi in a much broader context. And I'm sure things always happen through education. You know, I think I'm a great believer in pluralistic education and also giving a child an opportunity to look at different cultures, different histories. I think that's where reading, critical thinking, education, music, the humanities play an important role. And I think it's for all of us. When I think of what Kumar and Shalima have done, they increased my understanding of the diaspora after I went to Trinidad. I mean, at that time, we all knew about our history in silos, but through their wonderful work and the work that David Dabadine is doing now with the Amina Ghafoor Institute, it is bringing people to understand our cultures, our histories, our trajectories in a much broader context. And I'm hopeful that with education, we will be able to do that. But I think that we need to press at it as we are doing. And thank you, Shalima, and thank you, Kumar, for what you have been doing for us getting a better understanding. I don't think this type of serious work has been happening anywhere in the world. Every time somebody asks me about diasporic history, I said, go to the Caribbean. These guys have been doing this for so many years. So I want to pay special tribute to you, Kumar, to Shalima, to Shakira, who was with us for so long, and to David, who's taken this major leap to us. And for me, as an East African Indian with a South African background, I began to see a bigger picture after I saw what Trinidad had done in bringing Gandhi's philosophy back to Africa, to Ghana, to Kaunda, to Tanganyika, to Tanzania, to all those places. So we need to educate our children in a much broader way. But I agree with you, we need to learn more. But thank you, Vijay, for those very valuable words.
You know,
MK, yeah.
Whenever I hear you, I'm so humbled, and I feel you always remind me of how little I know, how much more I need to know. And I'm really grateful to you for that. Sharing a space with you, whether it's virtual or in person, is really something that I truly appreciate. I want to thank you very much for that.
Thank you, Shalima.
Thank you. I know that we are coming to a close. It's now 5:05. I know I had many questions for Zuli, but I think what I want to do, Noor, if it's okay with you, I want to bring her back. I want to have her separately for a different kind of session. Yeah?
You mean another day? Another day, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's very late in India right now, and I think we've MK, would you agree? I think we may be tiring her out. So we'll bring her back on a separate day, and thankfully through you we're connected with her so we can have that conversation. Mahmoud, I think you had a comment in the chat. Please go ahead, unmute your mic, and you go ahead and make your comment, please.
Well, I just wanted to highlight that just as our grandfathers went to Africa and were pioneers in establishing the Indian diaspora in Africa, in many ways, those of us who migrated from Africa to Europe ourselves actually are pioneers of engaging once again with the diaspora in a totally different geographical context and learning about what it means to incorporate our Indian heritage into the much wider global heritage that we all come from. And going back to the statement that my students made to me, saying that, where do you belong? And I did not know how to answer that. And in the end, they gave me the answer that you belong to the world. If India, if I had to get a visa to enter India, If the Africans didn't want me, the British don't want me, where do I belong? I have all these ancestry in me, but the children gave me the answer. I belong to the world. So, but India is very much in my heart, indeed. And Dhanyawad. Thank you.
What a very, very poignant statement, sir. You do indeed belong to the world. And like the rest of us, India is indeed in our heart, but you rightly said, India does not want us either. As children of the indentures, it's something that is a pet peeve for me.
Well,
Thank you very much for sharing that.
Yeah. Well, great. It's so wonderful to have been part of this presentation. Thank you so much.
It's wonderful to have
indeed.
you. Thank you. Yasmin, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, just a huge thank you to all the ICC leadership for facilitating this, chasing us to make sure we're giving you our presentations, and to Dr. Keshauji for encouraging us to do this. So I appreciate. I've been quite ill just back from the trip, and so I've kind of geared up all my energy for this. So and I'm really grateful for the opportunity.
Thank you. And join us every Sunday, same time, different topics, please.
Okay, thank you very much.
We really appreciate you being here, even though you are unwell. Thank you so much. If Zuli, before we go, let me just see if Zuli would want to say something. Would you like to make a comment? You'd have to unmute your mic if you just wanted to make a comment, please. I feel we need to give her the opportunity because she's been waiting.
The thing that I would like to say is that this is, it was clubbed as Caribbean, Indo-Caribbean, whatever. But I think that this kind of interaction, which is global, is fascinating, and I'm glad I've become part of this today, and I thank you for that. And I think that I would seriously like to participate time and again when there are subjects that are being talked about, and just generally to listen to the points of view has been exhilarating, really. And I really appreciate it. So you'll see more of it, more of me attending your sessions. Mama, thank you for introducing me out here, and for having appreciated our work, Veera's and mine, to take you through this whole experience, which triggered off this conversation tonight. And it was very, very mind blowing to know what little things that you've noticed, which we take for granted here in India. I mean, after a long while, I'm taking things for granted now. Earlier, everything was an eye opener. So I thank you, Mamad, for giving this opportunity to Veera, myself, and BTS. Thank you.
Wonderful. It was an absolute honor to have you here on the program with us. And like I said before, I really would like to have you come on and do a special session because you are ideally placed, as none of us are, to share information coming from being an Indian in Africa, then returning to India and adopting an entire lifestyle there, which none of us, I think, would be able to appreciate. So I'm really, really very pleased to hear that you would like to be a part of the conversations further, and certainly if we would want to have you. So you and I will talk. Thank you very much.
Inshallah. Yes, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. So to everyone, thank you all very, very much for being here. MK, excellent. It was a pleasure having you all, and I'll turn you all over now to Ashley to continue.
Yes, thank you very much, Shalima. I think, as is for everyone here, I believe this was definitely a teaching moment for all of us. We definitely learned a lot. I definitely learned a lot today. And there is one thing that I wanted to agree with Mohammed, is a line that he said where we do not belong to one, but we belong to the world. And I truly, truly resonate with that, because as a Trinidadian, I am not Indian. We belong to so many others. And I myself would definitely say I'm not a pure Indian. I am mixed in so many different identities. From my father being Spanish to my grandmother on the other side being Chinese. I don't really belong anywhere, but I belong to the world, because so many identities got mixed up within the indentureship, enslavement period, that we really don't belong anywhere. But India is definitely a part of me. It is at least 75% of my identity, and that is what I resonate with. So I really, really agree with a lot of what you all are saying, and it agrees with me as well. So thank you for making me feel a part of it. With that being said, thank you everyone for taking the time to attend and participate today. Thank you to Shalima for being a great moderator as always. And I want to say thank you to the presenters for being so patient with our technical difficulties and for being patient with me. As was said earlier, this public meeting is being hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Center. Feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books. Remember that we are asking you to kindly give us your suggestions. If you give a donation, your name will be placed on our poster and all promotional materials. Please contact Dr. Mahabir for details. Our topic next Sunday will be Reunion Island, the first destination of Indian indentured laborers in 1828. Please be there. Thanks to our planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir and Shalima Mohammed. Thanks to our IT consultants, Navin Mangal and Daryl Gransam. And thanks to Daryl again for designing the poster. Please visit, like, and share, subscribe to our YouTube channel to see all our past recordings. Before we leave you today, we wish to express sincere condolences to our brothers and sisters in neighboring Suriname who are mourning the death of former President Chandrika Prasad Santokhi, if I said that correctly. He was 67 years old and passed away last Monday. We dedicate this song in his memory. Navin, I guess you will play that. Let me see to play that song.
Is Navin here? I think Navin should be able to do that. Great.
Navin, are you there? Navin? Huh.
I think he was attempting to
My
just.
internet is really patchy, so I can't, I shouldn't even attempt.
He was attempting just now.
Ashley, can you try this song? Let me call
Yeah, let me try.
पिंजरे के पंछी रे तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने बाहर से तो खामोश रहे तू, बाहर से तो खामोश रहे तू, भीतर भीतर रोए रे, के भीतर भीतर रोए, तेरा दर्द न जाने को। कह न सके तू अपनी कहानी, तेरी भी पंछी क्या जिंदगानी रे, कह न सके तू अपनी कहानी, तेरी भी पंछी क्या जिंदगानी रे, विधि ने तेरी कथा लिखी, आंसू में कलम डुबोए, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने को। चुपके रोने वाले, रखना छिपा के दिल के छाले रे, चुपके रोने वाले, रखना छिपा के दिल के छाले रे, ये पत्थर का देश है पगले, कोई न तेरा होए, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, पिंजरे के पंछी रे, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, तेरा दर्द न जाने कोई, पिंजरे के पंछी रे।
Yeah, make me co-host now. Okay, thanks everybody for joining. We had a large number of people on YouTube and sorry, on Zoom and those following on YouTube. So thanks to everybody for not only joining but remaining. It was a wonderful discussion. We had some internet, not some, a lot of internet challenges. Ashley and myself, Lucky Navin was there who came to our rescue at the end. So we want you to kindly exit because we want to have a planning meeting. So if you can leave, so Shalima and I can plan next week meeting and the week after, right? But thank you very much. We appreciate it. And
Dr. Mahavar, excuse me, did you end the live stream?
oh no,
Bye-bye.
sorry.